welcome back to Women Making Moves, where we celebrate the moves that women are making. My name is Amy Pons. I'm a Master Certified Life Coach and a Soul Healer. I'm joined today with Kristi Sullivan. Kristi H. Sullivan is a human design and self-care expert, speaker, and lead author of the best-selling Amazon book, Stop Overworking and Start Overflowing, 25 Ways to Transform Your Life Using Human Design. She hosts a virtual community for spiritually minded females to create better wellness, improve relationships, shift mindsets, and manifest more success, wealth, and freedom to live their best life by design. Kristi teaches workshops and conferences internationally, both in person and virtually, and has been featured on more than 100 podcasts and dozens of events. She also has contributed to 6 anthologies, has been a certified yoga instructor for nearly 2 decades, and became a full-time soul professional in 2020 after more than 25 years as a marketing and communications executive. Kristi, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so excited and grateful. This has been a little bit of time coming and the stars have aligned. We finally are together, Amy.
I trust that. I think we've known each other for about a year now.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fun thing too. Like we weren't supposed to talk, or we weren't supposed to record until a year in of knowing each other and seeing each other's work, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. And here we are at the beginning of 2024, which is going to be a powerful year.
Reach. Oh my gosh. So I didn't realize, I think I did know this and I had forgotten because it's been a minute since we've talked, but we have such similar pathways. And I think that's like a lot of women that we both serve and know. And I want to get your thoughts on what you think about this. As I grew up, we thought of a lot of older women as maybe like, oh, silly grandma, or, oh, someone who just like speaks their mind, a funny aunt or a silly grandma, or like they say whatever that's on their mind.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going somewhere with this, I swear. I feel like the older that historically women have gotten, they literally run out of fucks to give. And so they start speaking their mind, but they're also returning to themselves and listening to their inner voice. And it's typically been an experience when you've gotten kind of elderly, but I feel like it's becoming earlier and earlier. And like for you and me, spending 20 plus years in corporate America in marketing, we were like, and no, unsubscribe. And now we're in this beautiful new world. So I find that really kindred, and I had forgotten we had that in common.
When you said something about the grandma or, old woman, I have been hearing this word crone, and part of me thinks like, is that an old woman? But I think that's getting redefined. So that word came up when you said and described the older woman, the old wise woman.
The old wise woman who will like say things that everybody's thinking but won't say, so the woman who is imparting the truth that others have maybe pushed to the side in effort to keep someone else comfortable.
We can get right into human design. That is your cross of tension, girl. Me too. I have the same incarnation cross, and it's what you described. It's like we're noticing things, and should we say something? And why not? Let's say something. Let's voice it.
Let's get into human design. So fun fact for everyone. As you know, as I read, Kristi is an expert in human design, and she has had my chart for probably since we knew each other. You pulled my chart pretty immediately, and you saw amazing synchronicities with our charts. Let's get into it. Let's share exactly what human design is, how you do it, and why it's cool.
Yes, it's very cool, I think, right now. And I have to quote, like in 2023, the Washington Post had said that Enneagram is out and human design is in. And I think that like triggered something because more and more people are talking about it. So if you haven't heard of it, that's okay. It's trending, it's evolving. And what it is your energy blueprint based on your birth date. So think of astrology, and it's a combination of astrology and the Kabbalah, the I Ching, the chakra system, and these amazing ancient modalities coming together. And it's showing how your energy is wired. And why it's fascinating is I think more people are paying attention to their energy. More people, even this year, I think are paying attention to astrology or shifts that are happening in the planets. And so this ties to like, yes, there's an effect in literally to us feeling what's happening, but also how we're naturally wired energetically. And when I have been doing human design readings for the past few years, I learned about it about 7 years ago, but when I've been doing all these readings, I love and think I've seen more women say, oh my God, that's me. Like the confirmation, the validation of who you are at your core. And that's what I love about human design.
I like that you explain it that way because it has become like a buzzword. And I've had the same thing as a professional coach. Everybody's a coach. Everybody who does human design. Yes, or maybe, and I think of it as a way, it's not suggesting that anyone's doing it poorly. Although be mindful. If you're being told something that doesn't resonate, you have the free will and autonomy to say, no, that's not me. But I will say, just like the way that some of us maybe studied my degree is in English and publishing, and my career was in marketing. Just like the way some of us did deep studies in certain professions, there's some folks that will jump on a trend, like you said, and will do kind of like the fast food of study. And it's not for me to say. If someone connects with them and they vibe, great. But what would you say about, again, I'm not trying to compare, but like the difference between someone who's done like a deep study and someone who's on the trend?
Okay, I have a great analogy. And this is what I use because about 20 plus years ago, I discovered yoga and I was taking classes and eventually dove into studying it, teaching yoga. And you can find various yoga instructors out there who may have different styles, but they also are teaching very, similar poses and the foundation. So think of it like this. You can find out a lot of information about human design. And it's like watching a YouTube video of yoga. You can learn about yoga and even share it with your friends and family, which is great. And there's a lot of good information to share. But I think when you really do what we call in human design, the experiment, when you decide to live your life to some of the principles of human design, which means understand your energy type, follow the strategy of that type, understand what your decision-making authority is, follow that decision-making, tap into these natural things that we have within us. When you start to experiment with that, it's at a deeper level. And when you then start to share that on a deeper level, I think it's just, again, like you said, it's not that it's better or anything, but it's different. I think because I've shared human design, I've lived it, I've shared it, and I've done lots of readings, seen lots of charts, I have intuitively started to notice things. I share that things just unfold in a reading, for example, because I've had mentors that I listen to and I also study really deeply with. So I think that's the difference is you can get some great information even by Googling, but it's when you work with somebody or talk with somebody who's even seeped in it more deeply. That's amazing. I think that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. Clearly, I love the word magic. I love how you put that because same with coaching, you can, just by virtue of us being people leaders in the past, we've been a coach, but not everyone's a coach. We know what that means, right? So it's like, you can find out a lot about Googling. That's the beauty of that. But I think both with human design and coaching, it's like the magic that unfolds when we create that energy space with someone and we're starting to, and I'll speak for myself, their spirit guides start pinging me about different ways or different areas we should go in. And that is that's a really, really sacred way that I am in practice with someone as a coach. Again, I'll never be one thing again. So it's like all of the facets coming together in a beautiful way. And I think that's similar to what I'm hearing you say with human design. So
yeah. And I also want to say, because I know there's so many great programs out there where you can get a certification. I didn't go that route. And certifications are perhaps important for certain things. But I want to mention in the coaching world, I don't call myself a coach. I didn't go through formal training as a coach. I prefer something like the word guide or, again, teacher, because I love being a student. So when I learn something, I also want to teach it. So if you're looking for somebody who has the credentials and the official title, that's different. It's a different connection that someone wants to have. But I think it's important that even with a certification, if you're not living and experimenting and doing, even as a coach, the practice, it just changes, I think, how you can serve others. And I also love to say I hold space because I think all the answers lie within us, each of us individually. My way of doing something is not going to be replicatable in somebody else, but I can hold space for them to discover what their path is and their journey is.
No one can do what you do, how you do it. For me, that does have the certification, I can tell you it was nice to have the guardrails, and I flirt with those guardrails. And that's where you bring your unique brilliance into your craft. And that's where coaching is about expanding consciousness. I feel like that's similar in human design.
Yeah, very much. I think that's what you can discover in human design is awareness, consciousness. And I think that's really the journey that I found myself on and that I help other women on.
So tell me.
Well, where I usually start off, again, if folks are new, your listeners are new, is that the first thing that I recommend is if you're discovering your chart, your design, to look at what energy type you are. That's sort of the outside layer. There's so many layers to human design. It can be sometimes confusing, but you and I are both generator types, and actually 70% of the population are. Generator types I describe as we are the builders, the busy worker bees, but we're here to help create and manufacture and build out things. And that's so important. We, especially in an industrial age, like we would have ideas and innovations, and then someone had to actually go do the work. So what's important for generators is that we are important, and we also have this consistent energy if we're healthy and rested. And what's important is that we're doing work that we love. Because if we're doing any that we're not loving, then it starts to drain what I call the generator battery. And we can build all day, but we will burn out if we're doing work that we don't love.
So Kristi, you and I both spent 20 plus years in corporate America. I'll speak for myself. That rings true. I was always burnt out. Always, always, always. Because I was never doing anything that I loved.
Yeah, I think I had a little different experience. When I started doing the work where I was previously, I loved it. It was the culture and the company and the work we were doing, the mission that really resonated and always held me there for a very long time, 20 years in my last job. What happened though is that I felt this pull, this draw to like health and wellness, personal development, now spirituality, as I can see. And I felt like, okay, let me try to build something on the side. Let me do it on the side. And that's where I think the burnout happened for me, is that I was working and putting energy into a full-time position and company and mission, which I enjoyed and was wanting to experiment with other things. And like a lot of people these days, maybe following my passion at the time when I didn't know what that would look like or how it would look like. But when I was trying it, I was initiating versus responding as a generator type. And that's where the burnout happened, is that I was trying to make something else happen so that I could then perhaps leave what I was doing. And yes, that's typically what we're recommended to do in our 3D make money, time for money life. But it felt to me like my energy was not aligned. It was not in the right place. And I think that's where I felt burnout. So in addition to being a generator, you have what's called sacral authority. So that's the next place I would look, is after energy type, is what is uniquely to you your best place to make decisions, because it is not the head as we've all been taught in our society. The head is meant to hold information and be helpful and store memories and inspire us and have ideas, but it's really within the body, within the energy of the energy centers within the body, where having, like I call the inner GPS, to help us understand what to say yes to and what to say no to. And for generator types specifically, I always say, we can say yes to too many things. Our strategy of the energy is to respond. I said not initiate, but actually to respond. So when people ask us to do things, we usually say, oh yes, I'll take that on. I'll do this. We like those lists sometimes. And we need to be really mindful of what we're saying yes to, because that's energy we're putting out. If we're saying, again, yes to the wrong thing, the thing that's not the right timing or the right thing for us in this moment, we're using up energy, and that again can lead to things like overwhelm, frustration, or eventually burnout. Your decision making is the sacral. Generators can all tap into this, and then about 50% of the population also need to kind of wait. But the sacral is a yes, no feeling that arises from your gut. It can be in the form of sound of yes and no, like uh-huh or uh-uh, or maybe head nodding, but it's a feeling that comes from within the body. Does that resonate for you?
Yes. I get an overwhelming, I don't hear anything. Like when I say I'm hearing someone's guides or my guides, I also don't hear anything. I call them pings. Like I get like these pings that I just know. Well, from my sacral, it's an absolute energy burst up into my body to tell me yes or no.
And what's beautiful is those pings or bursts of the energy, it's literally is coming from our sacral center. That's what makes us generators as a defined sacral being. And it's an indicator for some people, and I'll speak to some others, like it might be their intuitive hit. They might feel a sense of intuition. For others, it's what we call riding an emotional wave and just this kind of consistent yes. And rest is really important for all energy types, because if we're, again, over busy, overworking, doing too much, whatever type you are in human design, you might disconnect from that sense. And it just keeps us in burnout and overwhelm. So it's really important sometimes for us to be resting so we are more tuned in. And that sounds intuitive, to be more tuned into our intuition. Yes, rest is important now more than ever these days.
And that really resonates too, because, and I now know since you just told me, I will always tell people any decision that you make, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no. I now know that doesn't land with everyone because that doesn't at all happen for them. The other thing is, yes, I used to pride myself on if I'm not back to back, I'm bored, or if I'm not slammed, I'm bored. And I used to say that as a badge of honor. It was a big part of my mask of like, I didn't want to slow down and think from my sacral. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just stay in autopilot, stay quote unquote above water or safe. And, and I used to numb it with alcohol. I did not want to feel that. No.
Yeah, I've got a friend who teaches about, you mentioned alcohol, but that all of us sort of have some outlet, some addictive outlet, and it could be even shopping or watching TV or binging, Netflix. But what's happening is, like you said, that numbing or distraction, because it makes us feel, especially 70% generator types, or if you're not a generator type, you're certainly conditioned like a generator type to be busy. So we feel like, doing gives us that busy sort of badge of honor. And we've been in a society in the industrial age of productivity was rewarded and money is given to you for the amount of time that you're working. So these definitely exist, and it's something that definitely served us, but we're starting to shift and change into more of this energy being that we are, less concrete, more abstract, I think, in terms of how do we really feel success? How do we feel productive? And it could be really resting as part of that equation.
Absolutely. I share that a lot with the people that I serve. Rest is also productivity and figuring out when that is. And I've been so proud of myself this year so far, when there's been a day where I'm like, nope. I'll go through a couple of things and then my body is just telling me no. And I go back to bed and I snug puppies. And that's the best part of my life, having that freedom and that ability.
Self-care is really, again, what you need individually to be sure that you're not just rested, but that you're having the best well-being that you can have, whether it's through rest, through connecting with nature, doing some of the inner work like you're doing with women. That's really important. And all of that also takes energy. So that's also why rest is important, even if you're busy doing self-care.
Yeah, and as we were mentioning before we got on the call, my personal, as a healer, healers need healed, y'all. My personal healing and rejuvenation and recharge is myofascial release. I'm able to go inward in my essence and my soul and figure out where my energy centers are perhaps off kilter. And the person performing the MFR is doing the work in my physical body to shift the energy where it's stuck. So we work together on that.
What's really important is the three key elements: your energy type, the strategy of that energy. And let's talk about that. And then that decision making. So strategy is different for the different energy types. 9% of the population are meant to initiate. They're the ones who have a download of information, and their role is, let me go initiate this, partly also by initiating others, giving the generators oh, here's something that you can build. There's also a strategy for projector types that is about waiting for recognition and an invitation, because while one person initiates and another energy type builds, there's a third energy type where providing wisdom and insight and advice and counsel is helpful for managing how something's getting built or how something's evolving. So those are the projector types. We all have a little bit of each of this type of energy in us. So I just want to say that this isn't meant to box you in, but that energy type, the strategy that's unique to you, and your authority are a really good place to start when you're looking at your human design. I talked a little bit about the incarnation cross, which is really your purpose that shows up in your work, in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be something you go and search for. It's within you already. And what I love is that you and I both share this cross of tension. You're a right angle. I'm what's called a left angle. It's a little bit different in terms of our date of birth and how the planets were aligned and such. But it's really interesting because we share some of the qualities. And the cross of tension, for those who are listening, there's 4 gates that are really important that make up that cross. And if you look at those numbers, what we call gates, learning those 4 gates is another great step for understanding who you are at your core, because the gates of your cross are about 75% of your personality and your character and who you are. But there's so many layers. We can't go through them all, but really, I just love that you and I just share a lot. So that's what I love about your design.
When I'm hearing this, I'm on the right track. I don't want to say finally, because that's judgment toward my first 40 years. All of it's for me. My work now is building upon how to help the masses in a way that is accessible.
Yeah. And what I want to say is that when you use human design, for example, as a tool to know who you are more of, what I find is usually it shows up when you're already on the path of self-discovery and the journey of getting to know yourself deeper. So when you're saying you feel like you're doing the right thing at the right time right now, that's beautiful. That shows to me that you are open to the spiritual aspect and the purpose and the healing work. And that helps you feel in alignment. And human design just confirms that. It's not a tool where it's going to be well, you need to do this instead. It's to help you be more of who you are and understand the parts that were perhaps conditioned, but those are the perhaps self-limiting beliefs or ancestral conditioning that we're releasing when we're becoming more of who we are. So that's what I love is what you're saying is, I think that doing the work does lead to you just being more of who you are and feeling like you're doing the right kind of work, especially generator types. That's really important.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I knew this all along. I was getting the call inside me. I mean, there's part of me we've talked about this, my clairsentience, my claircognizance has been there my entire life. And I felt there was already a path I needed to go down based on what everybody else was doing or telling me to do. So I knew the call. I heard it. I felt it my whole life, and it strengthened. And for everyone listening, if you feel the call and hoping it just goes away, it will get stronger. That's when you should find one of us that is on this path and knows what that call is and how to help manage it. Because here's the thing, what it is an invitation for you to consider how you could fold in or start to answer that call, because it will get very uncomfortable for you. There's a way to manage that from day to day without uprooting everything that you know and feel safe with. It's just considering how you could start to welcome it in. For me, what that looked like was I suppressed the call for a good 20 years in my corporate life. And the way that I started to consider, I became the leader of the employee resource group. And I was starting to coach hundreds of women. That felt awesome. I was starting to answer the call. I didn't know it, by the way. I wouldn't have told you back then I was answering a call. I was just like, well, this feels good. And also I have this, the intersectional feminism was pulling at me pretty intensely. So a year before I said, today's my last day, if you would have said I was going to leave, I would have been like, you're absolutely out of your mind bonkers. Absolutely not. Like it's never going to happen. I'm retiring here, and I'm going to ride it out. So what lands for me, what you just said, is that be okay with the fact that you're not ready to hear something yet. And to Kristi's point, seeking out something like this means you're already pulling at the thread, or you're answering the call in some way, and you're wanting to understand more about that call. The fun news for me is that Kristi validates everything I already knew about myself, like inside, because I have done the work. I've gotten there. And so that's really fun for me to hear that. I would really encourage this as a starting point if you're starting to answer the call. This is a really great way to get started.
Thank you. That's amazing to hear that it validated you, and also that human design can be a starting point, and it's just part of the journey, right? And it's amazing that the right people start to cross your path in the right time, the right resources. And that's what I've loved about the journey, is that in the last 3 years, especially, like the people that I've gotten to meet and the signs I'm noticing and the things that just happen and are co-created, and again, magic. It's really cool, really awesome. And life is got its twists and turns, but when you are trusting that more things are happening that are meant to, you're allowing that, it's really helps the journey to unfold. It doesn't always make it totally easy, but I like to say we all want some ease and flow. So when you find your human design and align to who you are, some of that ease and flow can more easily happen.
Absolutely. Answer the call, pull at the thread, consider what could be. You don't deserve to continue to be told what to do. You already know. It's already inside you. I understand. There's things we need to do every day from day to day to keep things going, and you can still start to answer the call.
And I want to say this too, that back to this is a powerful year, that we're noticing, I think, all around us, that there's more of this rise, not just of the feminine, but I've also heard, rise of the divine masculine.
Yes.
Yes. Rise of the divine feminine and masculine. And that is happening. That's really like, it gives me chills, because that's the beautiful thing when you are open to the fact that what's happening is an evolution, and that some of that shift is not for everybody. Not everyone's going to be tuned into that, aware of that awakening, but there's definitely a shift happening. And I hope that is bringing all of us to a better place, and more connected, more aligned. And like you said, just follow that and trust it.
We need both divine feminine and divine masculine to create the balance we've never seen in this lifetime, because we've been skewed only in the masculine that's now become toxic. I'm actually helping a few men tap into their divine feminine, because again, it's the balance. We need both. So it's figuring out when you go to do something, And here's the very simplistic way to balance your divine feminine and masculine. When you go to do something, to take an action, think about what you want to feel or how you want to feel doing that action, or once you've done that action. That's creating the awesome balance between the flowing, trusting, believing, knowing, and the action, tasks, the structure, things like that. Pretty cool stuff.
It is. And so grateful that you hold this space for people to explore that and learn more about it.
Kristi, where can we find you?
So my website is kristihsullivan.com, and it's also transitioning. I'm starting to offer human design charts and information in a new website, so that will be launching soon. And you can find me on Facebook. I'm most active there, where I have Kristi's Human Design and Self-Care community, and that's where I engage with folks. So join that page and learn more about human design, and that's where I post what I'm doing. Thank you.
Closing remarks as we wrap up.
Surround yourself with inspiration and people and self-care and things that can help you find that balance in life, that balance of the everyday, maybe grind and hustle that you are still in. And that's okay, but find your people, find your, even as people would say to me, like, it could even be through a book, and connect to something that you know is going to feed your soul.
Thank you, Kristi.
Thank you.